Hello everybody, how are you? I wanted to hop on here to talk to you all for a few minutes to let you know how much we have missed you. We've been out of the normal lately, haven't we? Things are not at all like we normally have, but that's okay. Because all of these things are keeping us safe, and pretty soon we will get to be together again. We'll get to hug and give high fives and fist bumps, and I can't wait for that day. But tonight I'm gonna go ahead and share a few of your lessons with you. Well, I'm gonna do one right now, then we'll do other ones too. So let's get started, okay? Does anybody remember what we're studying? Go ahead, tell me. Tell your parent, tell somebody. What is our curriculum? It's called the Gospel Project. And we have learned a whole awful lot in the last couple of months, haven't we? Where did we start? A very good place to start. Let's start in the very beginning. Does anybody know what movie that's from? Sound of Music. Anyway, in the beginning, God created everything. That's where we start, the beginning of Genesis. So this is a timeline that kind of shows us where we have been, like that. So we're going to start and review. God created the world. God created people. Us, humans. He created us. And then it was a hard lesson. Sin entered the world. Then sin got real bad. So we learned about Noah and the ark and how God chose a faithful servant and saved him and his family to start over. Everything got real bad, but God made some wonderful promises to us then. Then we learned about the Tower of Babel and the suffering of Job. Job had a rough time. He had a rough time, but what happened? God was faithful, and so was Job. Even in all the hard stuff, Job stayed faithful. So then, Abraham. We learned about Abraham. Father Abraham had many sons. We learned about Abraham and Isaac. What did we learn there? Sometimes God asks really hard things of us. But if we are faithful, if we do those things, are willing to do those things, God provides. God provides all the way through Scripture. That's the wonder of it. God provides. And all of it, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, all of it, though, points to Jesus. That's what I love about this curriculum, guys. All of these stories point us to Jesus. So, Abraham and Isaac, God provided. Isaac and Rebekah. Isaac grew up, got married, and then God made promises to Isaac. He renewed that covenant that he'd made with Abraham. Then we go and we see Jacob and Esau. Jacob and Esau. Then Jacob had to take off because, we saw how Jacob found Rachel and Leah. He married Rachel. Then we see Jacob got a new name. Can anybody tell us what Jacob's new name was? Oh wait, tell your parents. What was his new name? Israel. A whole race, a whole people named after him. God changed his name. So, that was the end of volume 1. Then a couple weeks ago, we moved into volume 2, and I'm going to try to take this down. Oh, I did it! Without losing a second page. Do you like my makeshift studio here, kids? Okay. Now we're out of Egypt. Oh, is it gonna fall? Is it gonna fall? Ah, okay, out of Egypt. Okay. What did we learn about Joseph? Who was Joseph? Who was Joseph? Jacob's son, Israel's son. Joseph is sent to Egypt. Why did Joseph get sent to Egypt? Because his brothers didn't like him. He had dreams. Brothers didn't like it. Sold him into slavery. Bad. Oh, that's bad. But then Joseph explained dreams we learned about. God gave him a gift and it saved him. Then we learned why. Joseph saved his family. All those bad things happened, but God had a plan. God was using that to save his people, Joseph's family. So now we are at Moses. We're learning about Moses. It's falling down, so I'm going to take it down before it falls, okay? Okay, now we're ready for this lesson. Are you ready? Okay. This is our story point. God called Moses to deliver his people from captivity. Why were they in captivity? They went to Egypt with Joseph. Well, God, he blessed them and they grew. And so what does the Bible tell us? They settled in a land when they went there with Joseph. They settled in a land and it was a good land. It was a fertile land. What does that mean? That means stuff grew there. It was a healthy land. And so the people grew and multiplied. Their herds grew. They grew to big numbers. They thrived there. So, but years go on, and Joseph dies. And then the Pharaoh, that was Pharaoh at that time, when Joseph was there, that had such great respect for him and put him in such power, he passed away. And a new guy came in, new Pharaoh. And this guy, he didn't know Joseph. And what he saw was a great big group of people, and he got afraid of them. He's like, they could take over. So, what happened? Can you guess? This new guy, new Pharaoh, he made them slaves. Made them do hard work. They were captives. And so, but their families kept growing. God hadn't left them, but it was a really hard time. So, because they're slaves, this Pharaoh is a little insecure, a little nervous about them, but they keep growing. They're very healthy. There's lots of them. They keep having babies. He decided, and he made a law, that all the newborn baby boys had to be killed. So about this time, there was a Hebrew woman, Israelite woman, and she gave birth to a little baby boy. Well, she hid him as long as she could. And when she couldn't anymore, she put him in a basket and she put him in the river. And that basket, do you know where that basket went? It went right to the place where the Pharaoh's daughter was taking a bath. Have you ever taken a bath in the river? Well, they were taking baths in the river. So, along comes this sweet little baby in a basket. And so she finds him, and she takes him, and she adopts him as her son. So, this sweet little boy. She names him Moses. And Moses grows up as an Egyptian prince. Yeah. God, can you see? God's protecting him. God is calling him out for a purpose. So he grows up to be a man. One day he's out and he sees an Egyptian mistreating an Israelite man, a Hebrew man. And Moses gets mad and he kills the Egyptian. Ooh, bad. And so, the Pharaoh, which is like his grandpa, Pharaoh finds out and he is mad. So, Moses gets scared and he takes off, runs out into the desert. And so, he stops at a place called Midian. Midianites live in Midian. So, there, he settles down, starts a family, moves on with life. Still, his people, the Hebrew people, the Israelite people, are back in Egypt, and they're still slaves, and life is still really hard. So, they cry out. They pray to God. God, did you forget us? Do you remember us? Do you ever feel like that sometimes? Do you ever call out to God and say, hey, I'm here? Well, these people, they were having a rough time. They cried out, and do you know what happened? I'm getting real close. Do you guys know what happened? God heard them. He heard them. He knew they were hurting. And he decided, it's time. So, one day, Moses is out, hanging out, watching sheep, walking about. You ever go through a pasture, walking through a pasture? Pasture, not pastor, pasture. He's just walking around there. And suddenly, what do you think he saw suddenly? A burning bush! Can you imagine walking through the fields one day and all of a sudden, boom, there's a burning bush right in front of you? I would be a little concerned. And do you know what is even weirder about the burning bush? It's not burning up, guys. It's not. It's on fire, but still perfectly whole. It's not burning up. And God, do you know what happened? God called to Moses. He talked to Moses, and he said, Moses, Moses. Moses replied, here I am. Imagine, I would have been a little bit scared. All of a sudden, burning bush, guy talking to me out of nowhere. He said, here I am. And you know what God told Moses? Do you know what he told him? Take off your shoes, buddy. Take off your shoes. So, Moses is walking through a field. Or a mountain. Moses is out walking. There's a burning bush. All of a sudden, God is talking to him. Moses, Moses, calls him by name. And then he says, take off your shoes. All right. And do you know what God told him? Why? Why did he have to take off his shoes? Because he was standing on holy ground. He was with God. He was standing on holy ground because God was there, and God is holy, kids. He is good and he is holy. And so, God said, I've seen how my people are suffering. God saw they were hurting. He saw they were being mistreated. And he said, I want you. He chose Moses. He said, I want you to lead them out of Egypt to a good land that he had for them. God had a plan. All this time, God had a plan. He had been making a way. All of these things, well, I threw them on the ground. All of those stories, one after another, links together, ties together to show God's plan, and it's a good plan. It's a good plan. So Moses wondered if the Israelites even remembered God. And he says, well, what if they asked your name? And do you know what God says? I like this. I like this. Tell them, I am has sent me. I am God, the great I am, has sent Moses to free them. And still, Moses has some questions, guys. I can relate to that. Moses says, what if they don't believe me? I mean, that would be kind of a good question. People haven't seen him in a long time, and he shows up and he's like, hey, God sent me. But they might not have believed him. So God gave him three miraculous signs to prove that God had sent him. Still, though, Moses is not convinced. He says, but God, please send someone else. Send someone else. This kind of made God a little upset. But Moses was the chosen one. But he agreed to send Moses' brother Aaron with him to talk for him. So next week, next lesson, we're going to learn about what actually happens when he goes back to Egypt. Lots of things happen. So, this story is found in Exodus 1 through 4. I didn't read you all 4 chapters because you got really tired of it. But I encourage you to read those with your family. Sit down with mom and dad and go through those. I have here, this is the Big Picture Bible. If you don't have one, it goes along with the Gospel Project, the curriculum we're learning now. And it's really awesome if you need a Bible. So, shouldn't lick your fingers. Hard habit. Don't lick your fingers, kids. So look, this is the beginning of Exodus. It tells you all sorts of awesome information. So, okay. So, earlier I said that Jesus is from the beginning of the Bible to the end of the Bible. So our Christ connection this week, how do we see Christ connected to this story? Well, God saved Moses' life and called him to rescue God's people. He had a plan for Moses. And the calling of Moses points to a greater calling and rescue. Do you know what that was? The call of Jesus to come to earth as a little baby. Like Moses. Moses was born. Both of their stories start as babies. But the call of Jesus to come to earth and save God's people. Do you know who God's people is? God's people is you and me and your mom and daddy and your brothers and sisters. All of us. God sent Jesus as a little baby to save us. And how did he save us? He gave his life to save us from slavery. Did you know that? That we're slaves? We are. We're slaves to sin without Jesus. But Jesus gave his life to save us from that. We have to believe. Put our faith and our trust and our belief in Jesus. So guys, that was this week's lesson. Moses was born and called. So every week we have a big picture question. What is our big picture question this week? Is there anything that God cannot do? What do you think? Is there? Answer. God can do all things according to his character. Do you know what the character of God is? There's so much, but it's good. So God can do all things according to his character. And let's go over our Bible memory verse for this unit. It is, God's talking, I have been the Lord your God ever since the land of Egypt. You know no God but me, and no Savior exists besides me. Hosea 13:4. So guys, that was the lesson for today. I do so miss you all. When we get back together, we will have our cards. Has everybody been collecting their cards? I hope so. So we will have your cards for the weeks that we've been missing. Guys, I hope you are having a wonderful time being at home. I hope you're learning. I hope you're having fun. I hope you're safe. And I hope you're making lots of good memories. And we will talk to you soon. Bye, guys.